Hey, this is Andy Brown, and in this follow along, I want to take a look at base64 encoding and do a little bit of programming with it so we have an idea how we can base64 encode things ourselves. So I'm going to make a new folder in our API directory called base64. And what I want to do here is just create a new file. Let's try to do this with Ruby first, as that's a common way that I know how to work with base64 encoding. And so I'm just going to call this, we'll call it main.rb. We don't need to name it anything fancy. And if we look up base64 encoding for Ruby, it is super, super easy to work with. So we go here. It's not the latest version of Ruby. The latest version is like Ruby 3 or something, but Ruby doesn't change as much as versions like Python does, so it's not a big deal. So the idea is that we can do encoding and decoding. So I'm going to put these here. And the idea is that we have send reinforcements. And so that's going to produce an encoding. And then we can decode that again. So we'll just say puts enc and then puts plain. And we'll see what we get. So this will be puts encoded, and then decoded. And this is part of the standard library, so there's nothing fancy that we have to do to be able to do this. Okay, I imagine it's going to be very similar for Python. So just say text. Great, and I'm going to cd into this base64, type in clear, and we will go ahead and try this out. So we'll say Ruby main.rb. We don't have to do bundle exec because we're not using that, but notice that we encode it. So we take this and it turns into this, and then we can decode it as such. So that's kind of interesting. We could take a look at Python. So we'll say Python base64, and it's probably as simple as that one. So go here. Yeah, it looks like that. So looks like we can copy that. Let's give that a try for fun. So we'll say main.py, and we'll paste this in. Very, very similar, as you can see. Whoops. Is that how that looked? So these ones are outputs. Okay, so that's encoded. And then we can go ahead and grab this one here. Paste it in. And say print encoded. And then we'll print decoded and see if that works. So Python main.py. And there you go. So it does the exact same thing. It might be interesting to try out the exact same text and see what we get. Type in clear. And let's just go ahead and see if they actually are the same. So yep, they are identical, as you can see there. I assume B stands for binary. I'm not exactly sure for Python there, but I mean, that's as complicated as encoding gets. There might also be a CLI command. So how to encode, decode base64 Linux command. There could be something here. Oh yeah, base64. Yeah, of course. So this might already be pre-installed. I think it is. We can type in man base64 if we want to find out more about it. So it tells us how it can work. We have a decode. It looks like it probably automatically encodes. So I would think that the way this would work, we'll just make a new file here, readme.md. I imagine we can just pipe something to it. So we say send reinforcements, grab the same thing. Paste that in here. Oops. And then we'll say base64. And I'm just trying to copy this. Okay, looks the same to me. No, it's not. So notice this one it's very similar, but it's a little bit different. What happens if we do single quotations? Because if you use doubles, there could be a line break in there, and that could be affecting it. Let's go ahead and try this. Okay. Let's go back and run the Ruby one. And so there's definitely a difference here. This one has CW, and this one has 2 equals, and this one has an O. So there's probably some kind of little difference. Ignore garbage, wrap. So there's probably some reason for it. Again, I don't know why, but let's see if we can do some decoding. So I'm going to go here and say echo. I'm going to copy this. And then we'll say base64 decode. And it decodes no problem. What if we were to take the Ruby one and try that? Just curious, what would we get? Would we get the same thing? We get the same thing. So for whatever reason, there's a slight variation there. It's still working correctly. I don't know why one has double equals and the other one does not. But that's all I really want to show you for base64. Understand that the AWCLI will need to take in base64. And sometimes the AWCLI will automatically do the base64 conversion for you. It really depends on what you're doing. But same thing with the SDK. It may or may not do it. But there you go, okay? See you in the next one. Ciao.